Greetings friends and welcome to Premium Light Academy. We are your one-stop shop for improving your photography skills. In this lesson, we're going to talk about Lightroom for beginners. If you have literally never opened Lightroom before, you are in the right place. Now this lesson consists of 5 easy chapters, and by the end of chapter 5, you will be editing your pictures like a pro. In our first module, we're going to take a quick tour of the Lightroom interface, and we're going to import a couple of pictures into the library. All right, I'm ready if you're ready. So let's get started. All right, friends, welcome to our Lightroom for Beginners photo tutorial. Now, this is part 1 of a 5-part series. I want to make sure that these chapters are nice and small so that they're easy to understand all at one time. Lightroom is a very big program, and if we tried to cover everything in one single lesson, I'm pretty sure everybody would be well asleep by the time we got to the end. So again, part 1 of 5 chapters, make sure that you watch all 5 chapters, and this should give you an excellent start using this fantastic photo editing software. Now, before we launch into this, I want to make a very clear distinction. Adobe now has 2 products which they call Lightroom. We have Lightroom Classic, as you can see down here at the bottom of the screen, and we have Lightroom. Now, 15 years ago, give or take, Adobe launched its original Lightroom software, and it was designed as their premier editing software. In those days, it was just called Lightroom. Now that there are 2 versions, the original professional version is actually called Lightroom Classic. The new Adobe Lightroom software has basically been developed for people who are on the go. It's more of a mobile app. You use it on your phone, your tablet, your laptop. So if you're out on the go and you have to be able to edit images in a mobile capacity, the new Adobe Lightroom is the way to go. We will not be jumping into Adobe Lightroom. For the purpose of this tutorial, we will be using Lightroom Classic. Again, Lightroom Classic is Adobe's premier photo editing tool for professionals, and that's where we want to start. So let's launch right in. All right, as you can see, when we launch the program, basically I have a blank empty screen. As of now, this is what you would basically be seeing if you are opening Lightroom for the very first time. We have yet to import any pictures, and so right now all of our categories are nice and clean and empty. Let's start up here in the top right. So this is where we see our different modules. We have Library, Develop, Map, Book, Slideshow, Print, Web, and Cloud. For our purposes, we will only be working with the Library and the Development module. The other modules, Map, Book, Slideshow, and so forth, those are basically new sections that Adobe has created in order to help you continue with your photographic workflow. You can geotag your images, you can use them to make photo books, you can use them to make slideshows, which are kind of like little PowerPoints, and you can archive stuff to the cloud. Again, for our purposes, we will only be working with the Library module and the Development module. These 2 modules right here are going to give you everything you need to categorize your images, organize your images, edit your images, and produce beautiful looking files. Now, in order for us to really get this tour started, we kind of need to have some pictures. So Lightroom is prompting us to click the import button. So I'm going to go down here on the left-hand side. I'm going to click import. At this point, Lightroom is asking me to select a source. Now, I just so happen to have a secure digital card that I've loaded onto my computer, and it is filled with a bunch of images from a couple of our latest Premium Light tutorial outdoor workshops. As you can see, Lightroom is giving me a preview of the content which is on this card. And as we scroll down through, we can see that we have a couple different locations with the lovely Ashley. And so what I want to do is I want to import these images off of the card and onto the computer. So what we have up here at the top, this is an important thing for us to look at. We have a series of options. We've got copy as DNG, we have copy, we have move, and we have add. When we are importing images onto our computer for the first time, we want to select copy. Basically what this is going to do is it's going to download all of the pictures off of the card, and it's going to copy them onto our hard drive. Now, if we look over here on the right-hand side, this is the destination that Lightroom is going to import these pictures. It has a systematic file system, which basically drops your images into a specific folder on your hard drive. This might be a little different if you're on a Mac or on a PC. I'm on a Mac, so on my hard drive, I have a section called Pictures. And from here, Lightroom basically just adds images according to the date in which they were imported. All right, so before I get too crazy clicking import buttons, I want to draw your attention to the file name. Right now, basically these images have just been named by the camera. These are raw files which were captured on the very venerable yet still beautiful 5DSR. And as you can see, the file name is CA500520.cr2. When we take a minute to think about that file name, it basically means nothing at all. There's an old rule of thumb that comes to organizing your photographs. Never let your camera name the file. Fortunately, Lightroom has some very powerful file naming tools built right in. So if I go right up here to the top, I have a section. I'm gonna twirl this up just as if we haven't used anything just yet. So if I have a section right here called File Renaming, when I twirl this section down, Lightroom gives me the option to rename my files. Basically what this means is that as I import these images off of the card, Lightroom is going to give them a brand new title and it's going to save them onto my hard drive. This is important because if you let the camera name your files and all of your pictures and all of your portfolio are C45-126789, you will literally never be able to find them. That is the most useless naming system in the entire world. So what we want to do every time that we import images from Lightroom, we want to name our photographs. So round one, I am going to select from this section here, we have a section called Custom Name and Sequence. Basically what this means is that I can give each file a custom name and then Lightroom will say -1, -2, -3, and so forth. So I like Custom Name and Sequence. So we're going to leave it clicked on that and I'm going to give this a custom name. Let's just call this Ashley Premium Light Summer. That gets us started. All right, now that I've instructed Lightroom to retitle my files, I'm gonna go down here and I'm just gonna click Import. Now from here, Lightroom is basically copying all of these images off of the card and it's stashing them on the hard drive. Up in the top left, we have a progress bar, which basically shows us how our images are coming in. And once this dialog finishes, we should have all of our images freshly located onto the hard drive. All right, very good. Now that we have downloaded our first batch of images, you can see right here in the middle, the Lightroom library is now full of images from that card. As I scroll down through, I can start to see all of my different photo sessions. If I scroll up, we've got kind of Ashley in this little wheat field up here. If we come down, we've got this sort of cool looking sunbeam. And then as we go down even farther, Ashley's kind of tucked away in this hedge full of flowers. So we have a lot of beautiful images to go through. Now, since we have so many images, it is really, really important in this day and age to stay organized. So I'm going to direct your attention over onto the left-hand side into the section called Catalog. At the top, I have an option that says All Photographs. Now at this point, I have downloaded 117 images off of the card and into Lightroom. This is the total number of images that I now have in Lightroom. This number is also reflected in this section here, Previous Import. Once again, there are 117 images. So if you already had, say, 300 images from another shoot already loaded into Lightroom, and then you went and downloaded this particular card, you would have your All Photographs library would say 417 images, and then your previous import would only show what you just downloaded off your last card. Now this is important because sometimes you're excited or sometimes you're working for a client and you need to get this latest batch of images turned around quickly. So this previous import section tells you exactly what came off of that last card. Very cool. Moving right along, we have another section here called Quick Collection. Right now, this section is completely empty. It says no photos in Quick Collection. When I come back to my previous import, I now see that here are in fact all of my images. The Quick Collection is going to come in very handy later on. We will be using that a lot, and it will be one of the tools that you will use almost exclusively every single time that you open up Lightroom. A very, very handy tool. Moving down, we have a section called Folders. This is basically where you can start to subcategorize a lot of your images. And then down one more, we have a section called Collections. Now, collections are very, very handy for organizing your files, and we'll definitely get into the collections in the next chapter. Moving down, we have Publishing Services, Hard Drive. I typically don't mess with any of these sections here. So for now, we're going to leave those alone and try to keep this relatively basic. Now let's move on down to the bottom. We have a series of icons that allow us to toggle through different view modes in Lightroom. The first one in the default mode is the grid view. As you can see down there, it has a little G in parentheses. That means anytime I hit the G on the keyboard, it will automatically revert to grid mode. It's a very handy mode to have. Moving right over, I've got one called loop mode. If I click on this, it will take me to a full-size preview of that very first image that we have selected. Another cool thing about Lightroom, if you look down here at the bottom, we have a series of thumbnails going along the bottom row. Basically what these are is this is a nice little navigation path that allows me to cycle through my images using the keyboard. I can look at my images up close in this loop mode, and I can use this to evaluate which images are the best, which ones we keep, which ones we edit, and which ones we discard. So as I use the arrow key on the keyboard, I'm just going to hit the right arrow key, and Lightroom is going to move me on through these images as they were shot. Move it back, and I go back to where we started. Next, we have this XY. This is kind of a comparison mode. It allows us to see the two adjacent images side by side. If you're trying to make an evaluation, which one do I want to keep? Which one do I want to discard? Do I want to keep both of them? You can kind of see two images at once. Now, again, since this is a beginner tutorial, we're not going to go too far down into the rabbit hole of these other modes here. Usually all we will need is the grid mode to get us back to our basic navigation, and the loop mode so that we can look at images up close. So I'm going to press the G key on my keyboard, and I'm going to automatically go back to the grid mode. As you can see, since I was in that comparison mode earlier, when I look up here at the top, I now have two images selected. I don't really want to have two images selected at the same time, so I'm just going to click somewhere else and select a single image. Then I'm going to go back to my very beginning shot and click on that. And just for kicks, let's go ahead and double click this image. That automatically takes us into the loop mode, which enables us to see a full-size preview of this file. Now, when I'm in the loop mode, you can see that my cursor has turned into this little magnifying glass. And what that means is that anywhere that I touch on this image, I'm going to kind of put my cursor right in between Ashley's eyes. I'm going to click the mouse one time, and it automatically zooms me into a full-size preview of what that looks 1:1 pixel ratio. So I'm going to click. You can actually use the hand tool. You can move around. You can make some evaluations. And then if I click one time again, it takes me back out to my original full composition. Lightroom also gives us a really great preview of all of our metadata. If we look over here on the right-hand side of the screen, I have all the information that comes with this file. I can tell that this was shot at ISO 400 and that the lens was at 142 millimeters, the aperture was f2.8, and that the shutter fired at 1/200th of a second. Now, as I roll down into the rest of my metadata, I can see here, this is the file name that I gave the file upon importing it. Lightroom has preserved the original weird camera file. You probably won't really need that later on. And if we scroll down a little farther, it tells us when the image was captured. Here's the date and time. It shows us the size of the file. This is 8,688 by 5,792 pixels, that whopping 50 megapixel 5DSR file. Again, here's exposure, the lens. It even shows me the lens that I used to shoot it. This was with the beautiful 70-200 millimeter lens. And again, here's the Canon 5DSR. So if these kind of stats are interesting to you, or if you just want to remember what your settings were when you shot these images, Lightroom keeps all of this metadata nice and easy for you to access. All you have to do is go to the library module, click on an image, and on the right-hand side, you should have all the stats for that particular file. So as you can see, this gives us all the tools that we need to be able to really evaluate our images. I'm going to hit G on the keyboard. It's going to take us back out to the thumbnail view. And once again, I'm looking at my primary Lightroom library. Now I'm going to direct your attention down into the bottom right-hand side where we have a little slider that says thumbnails. If I move the slider to the left, my thumbnails get smaller. And now I'm kind of looking at a 40,000 foot view of my images. I can actually see all three of these different locations all at one time. The thumbnails are kind of small, but this can be very handy when it comes to organizing your files. And we will definitely jump into organizing our files in the next lesson. Now, as I move this thumbnail slider more to the right, naturally the images get bigger. So if you really want to get up close and personal and kind of really pay attention to how your images look, I tend to prefer this larger view because it gives me a more personal evaluation of the photo shoot. It's a little hard to tell what's going on when you're looking at your images all the way back here. This is not what you would use to really start making close evaluations of which files are your favorites. But this small thumbnail view is definitely very handy for organizing your photo shoots into different categories. So that gives us a very basic overview of the fundamental navigation that you have within Lightroom. We learned how to import our files, we learned that it's very important to name our files, and we learned how to navigate our files once they're in Lightroom. Now in the next lesson, we're going to use the library module to organize our files. We will come over to our collections section, we will start creating a few new collections, and we'll start breaking our images down into subcategories so that we can really get into the fine tuning of staying organized. As I will continue to convey in this series, organization is absolutely critical to the health of your photography portfolio. As your portfolio continues to grow, you need to have a system that will enable you to find specific files amongst the thousands of photos that you have captured over the years. And that's what we're going to be working on in the next lesson, so be sure to join us for part 2 of Lightroom for Beginners, organizing your photographs. We'll see you soon.
You see, that wasn't that bad. I know photography software can be a little bit intimidating at first, but when you break things down into small little bits, it's actually not that difficult. So thank you for joining us for our first lesson. In Chapter 2, we're going to start using Lightroom's collections to organize our files. Now, before we go, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. We have a lot of cool new stuff coming up, and I don't want you to miss out. In the meantime, we'll see you in the next lesson.